want to get this going because we've got some great stuff that we want to share with y'all. So welcome. So great to have so many here from so many places in the world, representing so many different agencies. So yeah. All right, well, just to get us started, let's meet today's coaches. I'm Nate Huntley, and I am a fundraising coach here at Tailored, and co-leading with me is the always and forever fantastic Deb Evans. Behind the scenes, we have John Mark Purdue and running the slides, and we have Royce King managing our chat and Q&A. So we love our very dynamic team over here, especially with this webinar. So we're excited to be with you and are looking forward to the next hour where we will talk about how to create and implement your year-end strategy. So we're going to be looking at a few things. Why it's important to do a year-end appeal. The second is how to identify an area of impact. The third, how to set a financial goal. And fourth, how to create a layered strategy. And the last one, how to create a plan and timeline. So to help get you some expert help right away with your year end, we have a COVID relief discount, yay, that we want to extend to you. It's 20% off of a coaching relationship for anyone on this call who signs up between now and September 30th. So this is a savings of anywhere from $300 to $3,000, depending on which package you choose. So please look for an email coming soon with those details. And of course, throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. So yeah, in your Zoom window, we've already been making good use of it. You should see the chat button. This is where you can put any comments you will share with us throughout the call, and where we will put comments and information as well. So the other button I want to draw your attention to is the Q&A button. If at any time you have a question, please put it in this box. If you put it in the chat, it can very easily get lost with all the other comments. So this is a live webinar where we can all learn from each other. So please share helpful information with one another and ask as many questions as you want. We will do our best to get to all of them either live or via text in the Q&A box. And we will also be giving you a few poll questions throughout the webinar to get feedback around your fundraising experience and goals. So now the big question, why do a year-end appeal? And the big thing is the fourth quarter is the big time for people to give. And here's some quick stats for you. Nearly 1/3, it's actually 31% of all giving occurs in December. 12% of all giving happens actually within the last 3 days of the year, which is just crazy to think about. Some people plan to give a portion of a bonus, some give for tax purposes. We'll talk about that at the very end and how that's changed a bit with some different tax laws. And some give for charitable reasons. It is the season for giving. And a big thing, donations on Giving Tuesday have actually risen 143% in the last 7 years. That is an astonishing amount. Not being asked is still the #1 reason that people don't give. And this is an opportunity for current givers and volunteers. They're the ones that are most likely to respond because they are already involved. In fact, volunteers are twice as likely to give than non-volunteers. So don't assume that a volunteer is already giving of their time, so I can't ask them for money. They're there because they believe in the mission. And so this is a way to get them involved in other ways. An opportunity for people on your general mailing or emailing list to give. So with that, let's jump into our first poll question. All right. So have you ever sent a year-end appeal for your ministry? We'll take just a second here, or more than one, for you to answer, and we'll get those results in. So have you ever sent in a year-end appeal for your ministry?
Nate, how many year-end appeals have you done in your time?
What's that?
Well, how many year-end appeals have you done in your time?
Every year.
Good job.
Every year. So 10 years.
10 years.
11. Yeah.
So this is your
actually just primed my contacts for this year's year-end appeal just today. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. And the results are in. 69% said yes. All right. Great job. All right.
That's fantastic, you guys. So we're glad that you're here because you're obviously interested in doing it again and being effective in doing that. So we want to help you with that. So when you're starting a plan for your year-end appeal, there's 4 components to it. So the first one is to identify the impact of your appeal, or what we like to call it, we call it YEA for short. So identify the impact of your year-end appeal. So contrary to what one might think, the primary goal of your year-end appeal is not to raise funds, but rather the primary goal is to accomplish something together with your partners that's going to impact someone's life. That is so important. It's not about the number. It's really about what we can do together. So we need to be appealing for something very specific that we can accomplish. So how will raising these funds affect someone's life other than yours? So often when you find yourself in a difficult financial situation, you ask the question, how much money do I need? But the question should be, how much money is needed to impact someone's life? So ideally, this is something that you're already committed to do. So when identifying the impact of the appeal, you want to ask yourself these 2 questions. So impact question number 1, what program, event, or resources do you provide, or are you planning to provide, that could use additional funding? So for example, maybe you want to provide a weekly English club for refugees that's centered around the Bible, or providing food, clothing, shelter for someone who's experienced a natural disaster. It could be offering free vaccines, or it could be renting an actual office or medical care, a space for medical care, a space for counseling, something like that. It could be holding a training or providing resources for church leaders. You've come up with the program or resource. Now you want to ask. So the current reality of 2020 is the global impact of COVID-19 has really been felt by every person, regardless of their social or economic status. So this year especially, you have a great opportunity to connect your donors, your volunteers, and your prayer partners to what others have experienced in different ways around the world. And connecting common struggles is often results in what God doing amazing things through building partnerships together. So impact question number 2, what difference will this make in someone's life? So we talked about the English club. Great. You have the English club. Let's get it started. What difference is it going to make? Well, hopefully refugees are going to start feeling empowered and not alone. Maybe they'll come to Christ through Bible study and interaction with other believers. That would be amazing. What about disaster relief? Well, families can stay in their communities. They can feel loved and cared for and experience Christ through his church. How about training church leaders? Local churches are growing. What a great problem to have. But often leadership needs help to become more effective for the transformation of their congregation and their communities. So if you're having a hard time thinking of specific impact, try this exercise. So let's assume that you're successful, and by December 31st, you've raised everything that you need. So now you want to start telling people how that made a difference, what you actually did with the money. So start there and let that generate the impact that you focus your appeal on. Again, think, if I have all the money I need, what would I be telling them about the results? And on that note, you might be tempted to focus your year-end appeal on getting out of a deficit. Many ministries, many people, they're running a deficit at the end of the year. That's common, and it hurts. It really does, and it needs a solution. But even if your year-end appeal is going to help you get out of a deficit, getting out of a deficit can't be the impact for your appeal. Go further and ask, how would this ministry be adequately funded? How, if the ministry was adequately funded, how would that make an impact in someone's life? And then use that as the impact for the year-end appeal. Again, it's not about getting out of a deficit. It's about what we can accomplish together.
So good, so important. So the first component of your plan for a year-end appeal is to identify impact. So, and now going into the second component, that's where you actually set the financial goal. And there's a few simple things. It needs to be directly related to your impact. Your goal needs to include the total cost of impact. Don't just think about direct costs of a program or initiative. Make sure to do the work and include the overhead costs of transportation, food, stationery, and even time compensation. This is something that I do myself because I'm still active in missions. And a great example of this is every year we go to Uganda and we have a gigantic church pastoral training seminar. And so one thing that we're always doing, because it's a poor rural area, is we're the ones that are also funding the food and the lodging for all of the participants. And we're talking like our biggest year, which was 2 years ago, we had over 740 people come from all around the country. So, I mean, we're paying for their food, for their lodging, their transportation, and even for like our translators and stuff, we wanted to give them gifts of appreciation, everything. And we had to factor all of that in as well. So be as thorough as possible. So when setting a financial goal, you should land on something achievable. Be intentional and think about your donor base and their capacity. Now, why is it important to consider capacity? This is because it varies from partner to partner, and you don't want to set a goal that exceeds what your list can give unless you have a specific plan to reach new people outside of your current list. Particular to this year is considering COVID-19 impact. Don't let the economic information we hear about in the news deter you from asking. We cannot say this enough. We have seen God move people to give astoundingly generously, in astoundingly generous ways through all of this. Remember, God's economy runs very different than the world's. So you want to consider generosity. If you have people who are generous, you want to challenge them to give something generous, but again, achievable. One of the biggest benefits of a year-end appeal is accomplishing something together. You're creating a moment where everyone comes together and achieves something together. This is an opportunity even for people who give regularly throughout the year to give above and beyond. Don't ever exclude someone from a year-end appeal because they've already given that year. This appeal goes to everyone at any time who may have given at any time, and really get them together. And you do this as a team.
Awesome. Yep. Okay, so Nate just talked about the second part of the strategy. The third component is to create a layered strategy. So we find that one touch is not enough. And in fact, 59% of nonprofits make between 1 and 3 donor touches for their year-end campaign. I mean, think about it. Think of all the mailers that you get every year. I know I get multiple ones from the same organization. So I want to talk about what a 3-touch strategy could look like. So first part of that strategy could be a warm-up. What you want to do is thank them for their participation and remind them of what the ministry does. Follow that up with your second touch, which is a strong ask. We want you to be very specific about the goal and the impact with a solid ask amount. So having a specific ask amount is really important, and it's actually quite effective. It makes it easier for people to see exactly how they can help and what you need. And then third, the final touch in that strategy is the reminder part of the strategy. What you're going to do is briefly highlight some of the language from the ask, remember the goal and the impact, and that's going to remind them to give now. So let's dig a little bit into that strong ask. If you want to get even more specific in this ask, we recommend highly that you segment your list. And we want you to segment your list based on capacity. Now, when I say that, we don't look at people as ATM machines. But what we want to do is what Nate was talking about. People are generous, and we want to ask God, to pray and ask God, what is a generous amount that this person could consider, and align our hearts together. So segment based on capacity. There are typically 3 groups that you're going to segment people in when you're talking about capacity. The first one is your highest capacity donors, or what we call major donors. And these are the people that you need to write a personalized letter to and also make a follow-up phone call with. So for the average person, anyone who can give a gift of $500 or more at one time would be considered a major donor. But if you have a higher capacity network, then you might set that mark at $1,000. So often people think that major donors, they just give once a year, but it could be people who've already given or people who are giving monthly. You might think, you know what, they've already given, so they're not going to give again. But actually, oftentimes the opposite is true. People who have given are more likely to give again because they are committed to the success of the mission and they want to see the ministry continue to succeed. So they believe in it, and it also speaks to their heart. So it's really up to you who a major donor is, but it's important to identify who these people could be and to approach them personally. So if you want to see even more success, you can do a one-on-one ask with major donors, whether it's in person or over the phone or on a video chat. It's personal, and I'm telling you, it is worth the investment of your time. We've also found that a matching gift works really great for year-end appeal. So consider asking one or more of your major donors to see if they'd be willing to provide a matching gift for the campaign. It can be incredibly motivating for someone to know that their $100 gift can turn into a $200 investment because of that matching gift. So if you need more help in knowing how to make an ask, we'd love for you to check out our ebook on 5 ways to make an effective ask. I'm going to go ahead right now and put that, or Nate, can you grab that and stick that in the chat? There's a link Nate's going to put in the chat right now on the ebook on 5 ways on how to make an effective ask. Another level that you can add can be mid-level donors. Again, what that means exactly is going to be different for each of you, but usually it's somewhere between the $100 and $500 range. The more specific you get, the better. So a lot of people are more comfortable giving ranges as an option, and that's fine. But in our experience, you're much better off asking for a gift of $250 than you are asking for people to pick their own amount between $100 and $500. So don't make your donor guess at what is helpful. Actually pick an amount for them. And then the final level is everyone else on your contact list, whether they've given in the past or not. So this group doesn't need a personalized letter, but if your system does that automatically and you want to do that, absolutely go for it. But you still want to have a specific ask with this group. We also recommend, this is really important, you guys, setting the financial goal after you've segmented your list and after you've contacted your major or mid-level donors, especially if you're doing a matching campaign, so that you have a better idea of what's possible from your current list. All right, that leads us to poll question number 2. What communication channel are you, yeah, Nate loves these. What communication channel are you most likely to use in a year-end campaign? And you can actually choose more than one answer. We have email, direct mail, phone calls, social media, or face-to-face asks. Nate, what do you think most people do? Well, we're waiting for the responses. What does the great Karnak think that most people are going to do? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. I think it totally depends on where you're at in the world. Actually still deployed, or if you're preparing, and also like what season of life you might be in or what generation. So I think a lot of people right now or recently have been using email. So I think within the last few years, that's my guess.
I think that's really good. You brought up so many different variables. I was going to say email, but you're right about age range might be, a factor. Where you are in the world is a factor. And look, there it is, email. Number 1, 84% of you by email. Direct mail, 50%. That's high. You guys, that's really great. Who doesn't love getting a letter in the mail? That's impressive. Good job. Phone calls, 34%. That's higher than I thought it would be. That's awesome. Social media, also great, 31%. And face-to-face asks, 19%. That's actually up from last year. So I'm glad last year, 14% of the people said face-to-face asks. Great job at 19%, you guys. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, this is a great segue poll. I love it because another part of creating a layered strategy is to think through what channels you will use to communicate your year-end appeal. So let's look at 4 options, starting with direct mail. And believe it or not, contrary to the poll that we just took, direct mail or physical snail mail is the most popular mode of communicating for year-end appeals. Anytime you can create a personal touch, take the time to do it. You might want to write a personal note at the bottom of some of the mid-level donor letters. I know that we had that in the Q&A of what is a personal letter? It's just that personalization. So having handwritten names at the top. It could even be a type form letter, but then having a special note at the bottom. For some of the mid-level donors or high-level donor letters, or consider handwriting the addresses, choosing a color envelope to make it stand out in the mail. The more unique and personal it is, the greater chance it will be opened. So number 2 is actually email. So anyone remember the ding, 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 you've got mail? I wish I could remember the noise, the sound that it made. So there are many email services like MailChimp or Polymail, to name just a couple, that allow you to set up a series of emails that will automatically send at the time that you set up. So we highly recommend looking into options for this, as it can free you up from having to do it manually every single time. And instead, you can just get it all lined up and then let it go. A big plus to these services is you can get it set up to where it actually will personalize the letter for you automatically from your contact list. So you can it'll put in like the first name, last name, whatever parameters you give it, and it gives that personal touch without the extra legwork. So phone calls, follow-up phone calls can be very effective at getting people to respond to your year-end appeal. You can use apps like SlideDial, and that's slidedial.com, that will allow your call to go straight to voicemail, which saves a lot of time and potential anxiety if you don't do well with calls. If you're going to make a lot of calls, write out a script, something like, "Hey, Sarah, I hope you got my latest email. We want to raise $10,000 to provide free vaccines for children in need. If you would like to make a difference in a child's life, click the link in the email to give. Thank you for your consideration." Something like that. And then last, social media. And we recommend using social media only as a supplement to your direct mail or email strategy, not as your sole channel of fundraising. So you can check out more on social media from our webinar a couple months ago on YouTube. So go check it out. It's awesome. You might recognize some people. So even organizations that use social media effectively to raise funds typically do so because of the investment they've made in establishing their relationship outside of social media. This is just so crucial when it comes to using social media. You gotta have that relationship already. If you're gonna use social media for fundraising, it's best used when you have a very specific, highly urgent need that is not a deficit, that can be communicated through a brief story. This could be a family that lost their home, a village who ran out of medical supplies, an orphanage running out of food, something like that. If you use this mode, we highly encourage you to add visuals, especially video, to communicate the urgency. If a picture says 1,000 words, videos, they can say 1,000,000. So, and add a link to the actual giving page, not a page where they have to click through to find the giving page. We want to avoid that confusion. Give them just as few steps as possible. And a good rule of thumb: if you are asking digitally, please make sure that you're giving a digital way to respond or a link. If you are asking in a physical mailing piece, give a physical way to respond. You can add the other options as well, but make sure that you at least have the option that matches the channel that you asked through. Don't mail someone a letter and ask them to type the link into their computer. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to do it. Give them a pledge card and an envelope to return their gift in, as well as instructions on how to do it online. And this really cool thing, I love this stat. If you provide a pre-stamped return envelope, studies show that you have up to a 31% higher chance of a donor actually returning a gift. So, man, a 1/3 improvement. Yeah, got to do that. And this sounds crazy, but branded donation forms can help raise up to 7 times more. I think this is because it feels more legitimate and people feel more comfortable sharing information that they are sure is going to the right place. So make sure your hard copy and outline forms look their best to boost engagement. So we want to take a second and look at some of the Q&A stuff that has come through. We saw some great questions. And I think the first one is Giving Tuesday. So that's, for those of you who don't know what Giving Tuesday is actually the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So you have your Black Friday, I think it's Cyber Monday, and then Giving Tuesday. So yeah, it's gotten just huge in popularity. So great question. Great question, Joanna. All right.
Ben wants to know how we feel about red or green envelopes for direct mailings. I like them, but my wife is ethically opposed to them. I mean, colored envelopes stand out, right? So I like a colored envelope. I think they're great. I've actually had one client who got their kids involved, and they had regular white envelopes, but they had their kids put their hands in finger paint and put them all over the envelope on the back, or have your kids draw little things on the back. They're more likely to get opened if you have children's artwork on the back. So yeah, anything that can distinguish, I think is great.
That's a great one. That's a great one. Wow, Sherry, this is a great one. So I'm a missionary. The challenge today is that many people only want to receive email communication, will not give their mailing address. That is so very true. I have addresses for people who have contributed, but likely don't have any for my prayer partners. This is a great question, and it actually brings up a lot to do with tailoring your response to the preferred communication mode of your partners, of the people you're trying to reach. So if they haven't given you a physical mailing address, that's okay. If you have their email, that is pretty indicative that that's their preferred way to receive. So that's the way that you want to go with, if that's because you want to tailor it to what they're most comfortable with and most likely to receive. So great question. Yeah, go ahead and do email.
We also have one from Gordon. He's asking, do we let our donors know this financial goal? Do we create a menu of buyable items for this financial goal? I've had a lot of clients who have tailored their communications around the impact that certain things can have. So for example, like if you're buying plane tickets, for example, what is the impact that is unlocked by you, the launch funds to go for plane tickets, or for setting up a house? People want to maybe have a shower of, I need a couch and I need a refrigerator and I need different things like that. The overall general theme is, what is setting up a house? What impact is setting up a house going to have? And if people want to purchase a refrigerator for you like that, if there's a menu of items like that, perfect. But again, make sure you're focusing on what is the impact that's going to be unlocked by having people sit on your couch, having people over for a meal. What is that going to do to further the kingdom? Hope that answers your question.
All right. What do you think? Time for one more, Deb?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. All right.
So Rebecca,
sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. I think this is this is a great one. So is this the time to ask for monthly donations or only one-time gifts? That's a great question. So yeah, it's never a bad time really to ask and invite people into becoming monthly partners. When we're talking about year-end appeals, in this specific season, there is a higher chance that people will give one time with the specific goal in mind. So you can definitely make the appeal for monthly partners as well, but we do encourage that you make it very clear distinction between the two. And actually a great thing that you can do, which might be a topic for a future webinar, is how you convert one-time get partners, people who've given just one time, specifically year-end appeal, into monthly partners. And that's great after somebody's already given once. There's a high likelihood they might be willing to become a monthly partner as well. So, so there's a good conversion there that can happen. So.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in our next section here. And Rebecca's got a question about the timeline. Well, Rebecca, this fourth section, it answers your question. What is the timeline? We want to make sure that we establish a timeline for sure. And what we want to do is prepare and send the year-end appeal. It takes a little bit of time to do that. So the best thing that we've found to do is to actually work backwards. So what we want to start with is, when do you want people to receive your year-end appeal? So you might consider having it hit people's inboxes or mailboxes on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, which, remember, we talked about that being Giving Tuesday. And Nate said that stat was, 143%, it's risen in popularity in less than a decade. So it may be good to have it arrive on Giving Tuesday. So if you're sending emails, then what you need to think about is, okay, what day do I need to send it, especially if I'm overseas, because it might not be Tuesday, it might be Monday. What day, what time do I need to send that, so that people, when they wake up, it's there and waiting for them in their inbox on Tuesday morning. If you're doing a direct mailer, what day do I need to drop it in the mailbox in order for it to arrive on or before that Tuesday? Then you've got to think about, okay, how much time do I want to give myself to segment my list? I also need to write my letter. I need to have my letter proofread. Again, please have your letter proofread. I can't even stress that enough as well. Then you need to gather everybody's contact information. If you're addressing the envelopes, again, this is a great time to not use a label, but instead to hand address those envelopes. All of these things, there's a really good chance that it's going to take you at least 4 weeks before the day you want people to receive them in order for you to get this year-end appeal done. So, that could mean starting in October. I know that sounds early, but you want to make sure that your letter doesn't get lost in the very large pile of year-end appeals from other people that are going to come in before yours. Another date that you want to be mindful of is when you want people to respond. So this is going to create urgency, and urgency is huge. So the most common date is December 31st because it's the end of the fiscal year and it's when most people give. But some of you might have a deadline that's sooner than that, and that's okay. It just needs to be clearly communicated. Another important date that we recommend scheduling now is when you're going to send your thank you notes or make calls to tell people how their giving is making or will make a difference. So even if your impact is something that's not going to happen until next spring, follow up right away saying, hey, because of your gift, here's the impact that we're trusting God will happen. As soon as you get a gift, we want you to send a thank you note. A fun little saying to help you remember is thank before you bank. You want to say thank you as soon as possible. So whatever date you choose, make sure it's sooner rather than later. Here's something that's very important. Did you guys know that if new donors receive a thank you note call within 48 hours, their second gift is likely to be 50% more than their first gift? It's true. So quick gratitude is super important. So when you guys identify impact, when you set a financial goal, when you create a layered strategy and you establish a timeline, you're going to be well on your way to having a great plan for a successful year-end appeal. And getting started on this quickly is so important that we want to make it a little bit easier for you to sign up with a coach by extending our COVID relief discount offer to you. It's 20% off of a coaching relationship for anybody who's on this call who signs up between now and September 30th. So look for an email that's coming soon with those details. Do we want to take some more questions? You're muted again.
Computer's a little laggy today. All right. So let's see.
Yeah, Gordon's asking, do we share with year-end appeal donors what our actual goal is? Yes, that can be incredibly motivating, for sure. Sometimes too, I'll have had clients who, like, let's say their goal is $10,000. In their second or third touch, perhaps they'll have a little bar that shows the progress made toward the $10,000. And again, that can be really helpful. It can create a sense of urgency as well. People will see, oh my gosh, out of the 10,000, look how amazing it is that God's raised 6,000. We've got 4,000 left. Let's do this thing. So putting things like that in your end appeals and little countdown timers, things like that are really helpful too. But yes, put the goal in.
All right. So let's see. I love this question from Douglas about setting up a parallel social media campaign like GoFundMe. So that's always a great option, and love the fact that you recognize like still do the direct mail, email, and all that, and this being like that social media piece. Those can be incredibly effective and helpful. The big thing is just remembering that GoFundMe and all that sort of stuff, any of those sort of fundraising platforms, they are going to take a percentage of whatever's given. Same thing with like Facebook, you can set up their whole giving thing there. Remember, these are companies, they're not nonprofits, and they are going to take a percentage. I can't remember what GoFundMe is exactly. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%. So it's an option. And it can communicate the urgency and give people that additional layer. But if you make your appeal and give a link where they can directly partner with your organization, the funds go there, we've seen that be just as successful. So it just takes a little bit of extra work. But yeah, great question.
And Bethany says, what if we can't think of anything specific, any specific purpose for the financial goal? That's hard. That's a hard one, especially like if you're support staff, if you're in the office. But think about, again, why are you there? What is the reason that you are in the role that you're in? What impact do you want to see happen? I mean, start there. There's got to be something. There's got to be some reason. What compelled you to go, and what compels your partners to give? There's got to be some impact there, some potential impact that you're hoping to see, because it's about the hope in the gospel. So dig a little deeper. There's a reason.
Yeah. Let's see. Rachel, this is a great question about, do you think we're over inundating people when using social media, given all of the information and contact initiations? That's a very real struggle. It's just people getting saturated with asks. A great thing that you can do, a great option, is actually creating a Facebook group that you invite people into, and so they know more the purpose of the group. You can even put it in there of the what the whole purpose of the group is. It's communications with your ministry, with you, whatever, and making that ask. So it's a little bit separated and it stands out from all the other asks that are going on, and people can engage with you, going all the way back to building relationship capital, doing that on social media there. And so it stands out, you're building the relationship, and people are able to have a little bit more control over how much information they're getting and what it's about. Great question.
And Kelly's asking, what about people who don't give their phone number? Yep, that's the struggle. The struggle is real. It is not just you. Please don't take that personally. So how can you ask the question if you don't have a phone number? I've got their contact information on Facebook and most of their emails and addresses, but can't follow up to ask. They don't answer their Facebook video or phone when I call. The point is that you're trying, and that is the point. You can always ask. You can think, who might have their phone number? Who could I text? Who at the church might have it? Who are their friends? Who might be willing to give me their phone number? And if you get that phone number, or even if you reach out on Facebook and they don't answer, the point is that you have tried. Don't stop there. If they don't answer once, wait a few days, follow up using a different mode of communication that you have with them. We recommend you following up with people every few days, using all the modes of communication that you have with them. Maybe they just don't want to talk on the phone. I hate talking on the phone. I would much rather text with you. One of our former coaches used to say, so the golden rule is treat other people the way you want to be treated. But in fundraising, there's the platinum rule, and it's treat other people the way they want to be treated. So if they want a texting relationship with you, text with them. If they don't want to talk on the phone, that's okay. But at least you've tried.
Great question. Steve, yeah, this is a great question. What if all your various projects equal a large goal like $400,000 to $50,000? Do you break it up into smaller chunks? So yeah, going all the way back towards the beginning of the webinar, yeah, something that is achievable, that feels more achievable. While God, we definitely believe and know that God can do anything, especially as the one who controls all riches under heaven and earth. It can be a little daunting to some folks to feel like, oh my gosh, in 3 months you want to raise $500,000. Feasible within the kingdom, but I highly encourage you break it down into something a little bit smaller, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 grand or less, perhaps, or 25 grand or less, something around that arena. Yeah, it's a great question.
All right, so Emily is saying, I love the idea of the year-end appeal being about impact and not about a deficit. Is there still a way to address that there's a deficit without making it the most important thing? Absolutely. The way that I usually encourage clients to say it is to continue to invest in the lives of children through sports. In 2021, we're raising an additional $2,000 a month. Or, in order to, continue the work that was done in 2020 into 2021, something like that, like in order to continue these camps that we've begun, in order for these Bible studies to continue, whatever it happens to be, we need to raise an additional such and such amount of money. Does that make sense? What do you agree, Nate? Any?
Oh yeah. No, I think that's great. That's great. Yeah. From Sarah, would you recommend addressing the effects of COVID-19 in the letter, recognizing what we are all experiencing? Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, recognizing the elephant in the room, or really at this point, the whole zoo, incredibly important. I just heard that from a client 2 days ago, and it's like, oh my gosh, yes, that's totally it. Yeah, just recognize it, call it what it is. And there's something amazing that God is doing throughout all of this, because COVID's not limited to the US or to just one area of the world. The entire world has felt it. And so that's actually an incredible bridge to use for helping people understand the impacts it's having on other people around the world. That could be a great tie-in for identifying your year-end appeal impact point. Because man, it's been a struggle, and it's a struggle that we're all sharing and all know. So I think people, they respond to that sort of a thing a lot more when there's that connection piece. So yeah, call it out. Call it out.
Cheryl's talking about, she's a career missionary, and she's building up her support account after being overseas for 11 years. So her need is for recurring support while she completes training for future ministry. How can I present this in a year-end ask in light of your recommendations to focus on one-time gifts? So honestly, if your need is for monthly or recurring gifts, probably wouldn't do that in a year-end appeal. I would encourage you to have an individual and a church strategy where you are intentionally building relationships with people and meeting with those people one-on-one, sharing your presentation, sharing your calling, why you're still there, why you want to continue to be there, a little bit about the organization, what the needs are, your vision for the next year or 2 years, however long your term is going to be, and then your strategy in doing that, and then make a very specific invitation for them to come on prayerfully and also monthly. So I would recommend you doing that individually versus doing that in a year-end appeal. And for those of you too, we get this question a lot too of, if I'm just raising funds for the first time, do I do a year-end appeal? the answer would be no. We want you to focus on your monthly. It's much more difficult to get consistent monthly partnerships. So focus on that. Maybe when you get to 75 or 80%, if you're at that place by next year, then go ahead and do a year-end appeal. But if you're less than 80%, we would encourage you to focus on that monthly and just not do a year-end appeal.
This question from Shannon: how important is it for the donor's morale to see that the goal was achieved? Oh, wow. This is huge.
It's huge.
Huge. Yeah. Especially right now. I mean, we could all use a morale boost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because this is just remember the big thing that we're trying to communicate here is a vision, an impact vision of what God is going to be doing around the world and doing through you and through the people that will give to this campaign. So, and we want to know what God's up to. I think a lot of people, they might be struggling right now. And so it's an investment of hope, right? Not just an investment of hope for the people that you're going to be in, but an investment of hope for them to know that, hey, God is still working in the midst of crazy and crisis and all that sort of stuff. So, and just helping them to see like, wow, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that gave to this. And wow, it's actually going to happen. Or, oh, wow, got 20% of the goal met. So that's also a great time to be able to go, hey, it's all good. With 90% of the goal met, here's the plan to pull it off or adjust, whatever. But yeah, definitely be transparent. Keep people included and in the loop of what's going on. It's just so good. It's so good to see what God's doing through other people. So yeah, great question.
Yes. Report back. That is great. Okay, so people are asking about matching gifts. Can we talk a little bit about the logistics of using matching gifts? So in my experience, what has worked best is thinking about your major donors, thinking about kind of make a list of who they are, and then maybe another column on what do you think compels them to partner in the ministry? What is it that they're excited about? And then you want to go ahead and give them a call and give them a report on here's what happened. Thank you so much for your partnership. Here's what's happened. Cast your vision for 2021 and ask them if they would like to encourage other people's generosity by giving a matching gift. We've had other people who there was one guy that I worked with who had 7 major donors. And what he decided to do, instead of calling them each individually and inviting them individually, he decided to have them be a team. And he said, I'm calling you and 6 other people, and I'm asking you guys to be a major donor team. And I think he called them an anchor partner team, which is a really cool, like, I don't love the word donor. I don't love the word major donor. I love anchor partner. I mean, what does that communicate when you ask people to be an anchor partner versus being a major donor? And so he called them all and he asked them each to give $5,000 toward this campaign to, again, leverage the generosity of the season and of God's people to accomplish this impact, this vision in 2021. 5 out of the 7 said yes. So he had his $25,000 already committed up front. And so he set his goal for $50,000. So again, let your goal be generated, to be set by what's coming in. He also actually, so he did those matching partners. And he also then asked 13 people to be strategic lead partners. He asked them at $1,000 each, and each of those 13 people gave $13,000. So he had the 25,000 and he had the 13,000. So he felt comfortable setting his goal at 50 because he knew that he had the 25,000 coming in there and 13,000 coming in behind that. And then he looked at the rest of his partners and said, okay, what do I think? This is where segmenting comes in usually. If you don't think $25,000 is going to be made up, then don't set your goal that high. But go ahead and do some simple math, but just challenging them to be a part of something bigger than themselves and to challenge them to leverage the generosity of God's people by being that anchor partner. It's honoring to them as well. Let them know how their gift mattered and then what you want to accomplish with it in 2021. I hope that helps. So do that legwork before you even do the campaign.
So good. That answered multiple questions, a couple different areas. So that was so good. Yeah.
We're coming up at the top of the hour.
Yeah. All right. So let's reflect on what we have experienced today, because we have really covered a lot of details. So what is something in this webinar that has been helpful to you? So please, put your response in the chat for us to see. Yeah, we'd love to see this.
We're definitely going to stay on and answer your questions, but we also want to acknowledge that we're at the top of the hour, so we want to let people who need to go ahead and go, but we'll stay on with you as long as you guys have questions. But yeah, let us know what's been helpful.
And one thing we do want to talk about at the end here is acknowledging the reality of tax code changes that took place and some of the stats surrounding that. So if you're interested in hearing about that, please stick around for towards the very end.
So the importance of acknowledging gifts right away. Awesome. I'm glad that you caught that. That's super, super important. And not just to secure a second gift, but because you honor the partner in doing that. It's the right thing to do. Matching gift anchor partners and the colored envelopes. Yes. I love a colored envelope.
Getting that timeline established and working backwards from there. So good.
Mm-hmm. Focusing on one time and not monthly and not on deficits. Great.
Anchor partners, yeah. That's something I'm going to be using this year is, all right, anchor partners. I'm picking your brain after this, Deb.
Or a lead partner team, an anchor partner team, any of those things. And actually they use the concept of Nehemiah 3 and building the team, which is pretty cool. Even there's somebody in Nehemiah whose name was written in Nehemiah 3, which we always think is a throwaway chapter, right? Because it's just a bunch of names. But you know what? There was somebody so significant, their contribution was to build the dung gate. I'm glad it wasn't me, but that was a significant contribution to the building of that wall. So anyway, sorry about that little
You're good.
diversion.
That's good.
Identifying impact. That's
Prosper.
great.
Yeah. Prosper, I love it. Trusting God for what he's able to do and not limiting him by our thinking. That is like the thing to remember for this year. God's economy and what he's doing is very different than what we're being told and what we're seeing in so many ways. So yeah, he is not limited by crisis. He's waiting with amazing opportunity. Yep.
And I love, Rick, that you don't feel a sense of obligation to do a year-end appeal. We never want you to feel a sense of obligation. Our heart is that fundraising is ministry, and that really we don't even like the word fundraising or support raising. We like to call it ministry partnership development because that's what it is. It's all about relationships. So the fact that you want to work on your relationships with your monthly partners, I think that's wonderful, and that will be in and of itself sustainable for you for a long time and meaningful.
So good. So good.
Oh, Kyle, I'm glad you've got a strategy. Woo woo. That's great.
Yeah.
And Terry, she's going to think about layers. I love how people from Scotland talk about layers. The layers of an onion. Was that from Shrek?
Good.
Layers.
Yeah. Hi. Onions have layers? People have layers.
That's right. They do. So do year-end strategies.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Lawrence, great question. Yes, we will have a recording of this for you to be able to catch that first bit. So yeah. Ooh, Prosper, I'm loving. Okay, cultural aspect. Can you elaborate a little bit more for us? Yeah. To everyone, you are so welcome. Thank you. It's so encouraging to be able to be an encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. We've got just a couple minutes left. Deb, you mind if I talk about the whole tax change stuff?
No, absolutely, go for it. But before you do, can you
Mhm.
invite them to, I think it's important to invite them to the next one, and just make you guys
Yeah.
aware that there's another one coming up next month. It is on fundraising in an ethnic minority context, and Lindsay's putting that in the chat box. So we'd love for you guys to have to be there with us for that one as well. One of our coaches, Byron Johnson, who is an African-American coach, he's been in African-American ministry training up leaders in that context for years. He's a great friend of mine and another one of our coaches here, and he does a wonderful job. Lots of insights that are super helpful for both minorities and if you're someone who's working with coaching. So it's a really I'm really looking forward to the webinar. I think you will love it too.
Yeah.
And then of course follow
Prosper,
us
thanks
on social media.
more. Yeah. Prosper, thanks for giving a little more background there. So are you still in Africa or are you in the US? Actually, we would love to connect with you probably outside the webinar. So yeah, let's see, Lindsay, can you get us linked up with Prosper to have a longer conversation?
Will do. I'll connect you guys via email in just a few minutes and you can continue there. Thanks, Prosper.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so a big thing that we don't want to ignore is some of the tax realities that have changed over the last few years. So a question that we got asked, or that we've been asked, is has a lot to do with, are people giving less as a result of U.S. tax policy change? So what, if you're not aware of it, so the threshold for charitable gifts being able to like have an impact in tax deduction was raised. So unless somebody has given over $25,000 in charitable gifts every year, they're not really claiming them as a deduction on your taxes doesn't do anything. It just, you basically, it's the same as claiming the standard deduction. So itemizing gifts, anything under 25,000 doesn't give anybody any sort of tax benefit. So so the reality of that is what we've seen in the last 3 years since that was enacted. Let me make sure I've got my correct. Yes, got to make sure you're accurate. So, so that has actually resulted in about a 6% drop in charitable giving over the last few years. So that is a reality. However, this is across all charitable organizations, all nonprofits, whether they're believing or not. So, so we're talking about things like that includes Greenpeace or National Wildlife Fund, any sort of those that are not actually Christian nonprofits and charities. When we dive a little bit deeper, there's actually, it's approximately the same when it comes to Christian charitable donations. So it's not really a huge impact piece from what we have seen. Now, there's always some exception to that. People have definitely experienced some impact in that realm, but if we come at it from the perspective that God's people, if they're truly seeking after what God's will is, just being able to trust in and lean into the fact that God will be leading people to give in the way he wants them to give if they're earnestly seeking an answer, i.e. encouraging people to go to prayer, to go to God in prayer, to understand what it is that he would want them to do with their funds. It's really cool being a tailored coach and seeing that in many ways people are getting funded faster and at an increase, like they're seeing their goal for funding met and even exceeded at a faster rate through COVID. And I think it's this is just my anecdotal research here, but I think it has a lot to do with us being a lot more aware as people where our money is going. And if we as believers are more aware of where our money is going and are letting God inform where our money is going, instead of it going towards movies or going to the movie theater or eating out a whole lot or anything like that, and there's more sensitivity to savings and investment, well, you can never go wrong with investing in the kingdom. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of people being the beneficiaries, a lot of missionaries being the beneficiaries of more partners who are contributing more. So never discount what God is doing, even in crazy times, crises, and economies. So yeah.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that, Nate. And I hesitate to know how to share this story, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it anyway. Nate let me know, I don't know how many months ago it was near the beginning of COVID, that there were people in churches overseas. I'm not going to mention the country for safety reasons, but in any event, that our brothers and sisters in Christ around the world in the church were literally starving to death because they weren't receiving, as Christians, they weren't receiving government relief where other people were. And I still cry about it when I think about it. He was telling me literally this many people died this week. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And normally, we give to campus ministry and that's our lane, that's our thing. But I went to John and I said, we have this money. We haven't gone anywhere out to eat. We have this entertainment budget. Can we give some of this toward helping our brothers and sisters? So you just never know, like Nate was saying, there's money that people haven't used for things for so long, and maybe it's just sitting there, and you make them aware of a need in the world, and their hearts are pricked. They give, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a blessing to be able to do that. So we never know. We just never know.
Yep. Awesome.
And that kind of goes along with C. Santos's question about, how do you deal with privacy constraints, meaning that people don't want to receive your emails because there's just so many appeals going on. We don't know. we just don't know. We pray and we ask God, should I send this person a year-end appeal? And you follow the leading of the Spirit. That's my answer.
Yep. Yeah. So good. So good. All right. Yeah, to all those that have asked if you can get access to this recording, yes, once we get it processed and edited and all that good stuff, there will be access to this. So, yeah.
Gordon, I love your question. Is it appropriate to interview current donors now as to why they give? Absolutely. I wouldn't interview them, but I would call them. I mean, if you want to check in, this is part of that partnership maintenance. So you've got partnership development on the front end, and we've got partnership maintenance on the end. This is great just to touch base with them and find out how they're doing, see how they're doing during COVID, have a conversation with them, find out what you can pray for them, but also ask them, so, hey, apart from me, your relationship with me, what is it about the work that compels you to want to partner? It's also a great question. It's a great lead-in question to advocacy. You could take it then a step further and say, so when you think about people in your network who might have similar passions, who comes to mind that might have similar passions? And then you begin to identify potential advocates and potential new pockets of people based even just on that one question. So yes, absolutely. We would encourage you to pick up the phone, have a Zoom call, whatever, just to touch base on a regular basis with your partners and take notes somewhere. Make sure you know, and then that way too, in between those mass emails that you send for updates, those newsletter updates, you can make little personal touch points based on what they are passionate about. So yes, absolutely.
Oh, this is a great clarifier that Susan asked. Are the 3 touches 3 emails or emails plus social media plus call? I honestly think it's whatever makes most sense for the people that you're trying to reach out to. Are they high are they high contact people, like people that need a pretty high amount of contact and a lot of different touch points. So you can, that's another part of knowing capacity for your different donor levels, the high level, mid level, and lower, is also knowing their capacity for information. That might be another good thing to just think about when you're segmenting up your groups, is how much might be too much for some people. So, yeah.
And then an anonymous attendee asked, how effective is a video update with the ask included? Very. Just keep it short. This is not the time for you to be like, oh, here's what happened for the entire year and, dump on them for 10, 15 minutes. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
One story, very short. I would say keep the video under 2 minutes if you possibly can, because people really aren't going to watch after that. They're just not. So make sure you practice. I would script it out, so I know what I'm going to say. Then I might bullet point it, and then I might do a video. And it can be you, and then you can pan somewhere if you need to, if you have something going on in the background that points to the impact, or you can have pictures on that in that email as well. But picture, I think you said, Nate, picture worth 1,000 words, video worth 1,000,000. Yeah, yep. As long as they're short.
Yeah, absolutely. John Paul, yeah, this is a great question. Yeah, people are absolutely hurting due to COVID. It is still a good idea. Like, as we've said multiple times, God's economy works very different than the world's, and we know. And it's not to dismiss people's experience and the hurt that they've had, but we've seen people, clients that we're working with, that they've gone ahead and they've asked people who have flat out lost their jobs, that are still partnering monthly because they've received either some sort of severance, or they're using part of their unemployment stipend, or even some of their savings to go, you know what, I don't know a lot, but I know that I want to be a part of this. So the big question is do you want to limit somebody's ability to impact the kingdom just because of their circumstances? That's a question that you might want to be asking yourself as you try to wrestle through who to reach out with, or reach out to. So that's one I've had to ask myself a lot just throughout the season being a missionary, because I think that as many people as you can get to the partnership table, man, the happier of a table that is. So regardless of what their circumstances are. So.
All right, so Rachel's asking, at what point do you give up trying to get a hold of someone? How long do you leave them on your contact list after hearing zero communication back for several years? I never take anybody off my contact list. They, especially if you're talking about your newsletter list, they'll unsubscribe themselves if they want to, or they'll just keep hitting delete. How often so at what point do you give up trying to get a hold of them? We would say probably after 5 or 6 times. Rotating through, again, every few days, rotating through the modes of communication that you have for that person, and then just consider them unresponsive. Again, we don't want to consider them a no, because we haven't heard no from them. We're just going to consider them unresponsive, and we're going to move on to other people. We'll let them say no for themselves.
This is a great question from Thomas. Any advice about year-end campaigning in a major election season, with significant impact on the kingdom? So yeah, that whole COVID reference. There's just, again, going back to that providing a sense of hope and also a sense of normalcy for people. I think it's you can tap into the same exact thing. I think we can all agree, no matter what political arena or political camp we come from, that it's just crazy when elections are going on and desperation is felt by everyone all the way around. So just that reminder that God is still at work, God is still in control, and He's on the move. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter what else is going on within the world. But us being, citizens of the kingdom primarily, and citizens of a nation second, if we come at it from that mindset, it's good to know that your king's still at work, and there's that stability that comes with it. So regardless of what else is going on. So yeah, that's my advice. I don't know. What do you think, Deb? Anything else?
No, and keep politics out of it. Mention nothing.
Yeah, keep politics out of it.
And nothing political at all. Yeah, hope is a great concept and much needed. Hope and love. Keep it focused on what it needs to be, the kingdom, like you said. Gordon's asking, what's the language to up their monthly giving this year? I would say something like, what about, would you like to deepen your involvement by increasing your giving by $100 this year, or $100 a month this year? I like the concept of deepening their involvement. So again, to continue bringing the gospel to Muslims, we'd like to invite you to deepen your involvement by increasing your giving from $100 to $200 this year. How's that sound? Impact, focus, direct. No room for our questions. Hopefully.
So good. Yeah. I love this. Having a praise story. I mean, these are the things that are just so helpful when we have so many questions. So thanks so much for this, Beverly. Yeah, having somebody say that they were going to stop and you show the value of that they have for you, not as a penny purse, but as a person. Yeah, you do what you have to do. Don't worry about us. God's going to take care of you, and they're still supporting you. That's so cool. Gotta love it. Snaps for that story.
Yes. Okay, so let's tackle some of these other ones. So would it be possible, Dawn, would it be too confusing or too much to do a year-end campaign followed by the raising of our monthly support at the beginning of the year? Maybe. I think you really have to think about where you are. If you're doing monthly fundraising and trying to do this year-end campaign at the same time, think about what your goals are. Think about who your partners are, what they've given, what the response has been. I think it's really an individual thing. I don't think I can answer that definitively, but it could be. I mean, you don't want to ask too much, but at the same time, if you've thanked people within 48 hours of their gift, they're much more likely to give again and in a larger capacity. So honestly, take it to the Lord. Take each individual to the Lord and really think through what is going to be best for my team, and what's going to honor them and what's going to honor the Lord.
So good. All right. Gordon, you asked this one way early. I'm sorry we haven't gotten to it. Do we let our donors know the financial goal? Do we create a menu of Bible items for this financial goal? That's actually a strategy that I personally employ. I think it kind of just depends on how you'd like to go. I give a few different options for things that maybe speak to different people's hearts, but my ministry also touches a lot of different areas. So I give different options. Actually, it's not just one impact option. So it is more of a menu of things that they can partner with, different initiatives. But it's all towards that bigger goal of what my ministry focuses on, and then it's just kind of downlisted from there. So yeah, I think that's a great option, great opportunity.
And Tony's asking, no, not Tony, Jeff. I was looking in order here. Jeff's asking, I'm currently going through an MPD season of asking new potential partners to join our team and an increase for all current supporters. As to not back up and ask with another year and ask, should I keep it more low key year end? I might do my increase asks every 5 years. Yeah, if your need is for monthly partnerships and you are in this season of asking for monthly partnerships, then yeah, my recommendation would not be to do a year-end appeal for everyone. Does it mean you shouldn't do a year-end appeal at all? Maybe not. Again, go through your list of people. So you're asking new potential partners. So you'd want to ask them individually, not with a year-end appeal. Your current partners, go through. You may or may not want to ask every single one of them for to increase their monthly partnership. Maybe you do. I don't know. But if there are people that you don't want to ask for an increase, maybe those people get a year-end appeal letter. So again, there's no like one right answer. So there could be a combination strategy in that for you there. But if your need is for monthly, invest your energy in the monthly. And again, you don't have to do all kinds of complex layered strategies if you don't have time to do that. If you're doing your monthly strategy, you could just do the one letter. If that's all you have time for, then do that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, this one from Tony. Is there a different strategy for asking organizations versus individuals? The same basic strategy applies. So identify your impact area and work out the system from there. But usually with organizations, they want more of the details. So be prepared for possibly giving an itemized list on exactly how the money is going to be spent in what area. Make sure you've got all of that available for them should they ask for it, which most of them will, or at least it's highly unlikely that they wouldn't. And definitely with the follow-up of after, let them know how it's gone, and there's usually an additional step there as well as after the impact the impact vision project or whatever it is has been carried out, sending an additional follow-up of, hey, it's been seen through, here's how it went. So that can be done either through short video or a letter written up. So there is that additional layer that's good to keep in mind. So yeah.
Also with organizations, you might want to consider a written proposal, like a one sheet, a one pager kind of a thing that's a snapshot of who you guys are. A lot of them may want to know, I agree with Nate, who may want to know who you are a little bit more, or know a little bit of the background, but also make sure it contains your mission and your vision. And then your contact information, your giving information, and you may want to put a very impact focused budget together, not a line item budget, but maybe put a few categories on there and what impact those particular finances will unlock. You also have to think about when you're thinking about lead partners, anchor partners, businesses, whatever. These are people that want to see a return on an investment. They oftentimes, some of them really want to get in on the ground floor. So if you know that it's an organization that loves to start new things, leverage that. If it's, people that that are good closers that are like, hey, call me when you have you're the last 10%. Knowing those things too will help you to know when to ask and who to ask and how to ask specifically.
That's good. All right. Let's see, Robin, you got it. This is a heck of a good question here, and wow, I empathize with this one so much because I normally am traveling quite a bit. So not knowing when you're going to be able to get it deployed and everything, and you have the vision and the need project and can create all the 4 steps. Again, I would say this is the elephant in the room piece, where you call out the whole zoo. You lay it out on the table and say, I don't know exactly when, but this is my hope. And I would encourage you to include some sort of language in there that communicates communicates the sense of urgency, and along with that going something to the effect of, when I'm ready to go, I'm ready and I'm able to get right to work through partnering with this initiative. Something to that degree of, making sure that you're going to be at it as soon as you can get there. So I think there's a lot of empathy right now in general for that people have, and a lot of grace in understanding that there's a lot of unknowns going on. We don't know when a lot of places are going to open back up, but there's that readiness. God creates readiness. He prepares us in readiness. Look at the Israelites going all throughout, wandering around the desert for 40 years. That was just a whole time of preparation for readiness when they would move into Canaan. So you could use that even as an illustration of, hey, I'm in the wilderness, but I'm ready to move into the promised land. It's a great question.
Yeah, and in order to be ready to be into the promised land, I need to know your commitment now. You may not give it.
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't want to give it now, and that's okay. But even if they give it now, it can go toward the launch funds of, when you actually get there. But let them know, if that's the case, that you'll be following back up with them when it is time to launch. But letting them know that it helps you to be ready to know what their commitment will be. So. Yeah. Tough place to be, but exciting place to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Helps us in so many different ways to be prepared for the field. Fundraising does. That's why we love fundraising.
Yep. All right. So that's everybody from out of Q&A. Is there anybody that had a question that's still with us that got put into chat that we didn't get to? Now would be the time.
I don't see any.
All right. Yeah, okay, Thomas. If someone gives me a one-time gift in September. Yeah. A lot of it depends, I think, on you and what you define your time frame is for year end. I just started, actually today, I actually started my my year end strategy with that whole primer piece, that little bit of a teaser that Deb talked about. I did that today. And so actually from today until the end of the year, I'm counting as all one-time gifts going towards my year end appeal. But the big thing is I would count it as long as you've already communicated about what your impact is, what your year-end appeal specifically is. So with the gift that you just got, I probably wouldn't, if you haven't communicated about your year-end appeal already or given some sort of a teaser to it. But that's a great question. That's a great question.
Thomas, my question for you is, have you ever called them and asked them?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Just a thought. We've had people who have had people partner with them for like 6 or 7 years at, large amounts of money, and they have no idea why the person's partnering or who the person is, where they've come from or anything. And we always encourage our clients to go ahead and pick up the phone and call and build that relationship. Because again, it's less about the money, more about the relationship. And it might be fun to find out why they're giving, why they give every September, and to thank them for you're making an annual contribution. This is fantastic. Would you like to increase that? No, I'm kidding. You could do that. But just getting to know the person, I think, is great. I put the ebook link in the chat box. It's right under Thomas's. They gave the same amount this last year. You see it in there? You can't see it. Okay. Lindsay, do you have Allison's email address that you could give that to her in an email?
Yeah, Allison, I'll reach out to you in just a few minutes.
Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Merci. She's French. She's got an outrageous French accent.
Very nice.
Love that. Well, you guys, it's been so great to be with you today. Thank you so much for spending this hour and a half with us. It's been really wonderful to be able to answer your questions, but to hear your questions, to get to know you a little bit, to hear your heart, see your heart for ministry, and to really want to do this in a way that honors your partners and honors God too. So don't forget that we always have these free webinars. We also have resources that are free on our social media page. We can go ahead and stick that. We've got a Facebook page. We've got Instagram. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box as well. But thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate your participation with us today and your engagement. Have a fantastic day, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Bye.